idea of engaging is really to bring together all of the other yogic moving principles that we have talked about over this semester. So I like to remember those by saying be scary, because I'm a recovered goth, so you know. Be scary was helpful for me to remember. I hope you remember it too. So B is breathe. That's the very first thing we learn, and it is so important. Yes, we want to keep our breath continuous throughout our yogic practice, and that means inhaling. I like to inhale when I bring my spine back to upright, and I like to exhale down into stretches, but you can try the other way around. I think the other way around sometimes is really nice if you're doing a restorative yoga, or if you're trying to do like an end of the day practice, that like inhaling as you go into a stretch and then exhaling afterwards sometimes can be a bit more soothing as opposed to energizing, but you know, being thoughtful, engaged is the key there. So E is engage, S is support, and that's the idea that instead of just like bracing or like strutting yourself up on the ground, you're thinking about your body as being a spring or a shock system. So we reach into the floor and that effort rebounds us, and we have this soft, engaged bounce going on. Yes? So C is the idea of centering, and so centering means that you are pulling into your center line, which of course exists not only on this plane, but also exists on this plane, all the planes, yeah? So if you imagine that there's a string coming from the top of your head all the way down into the center of the earth, that means that your inner thighs are gently coming together. It means that your belly is softly lifting inwards, that your pelvic floor is coming up and inwards, that your shoulder blades are drawing together towards the spine to open the heart so that your shoulder girdle rests right on top of your rib cage, and that your spine, instead of leaning out, is lengthening up. And those things all have to do with C-A-R, alignment. So R in be scary is coming up next. That's radiate. We'll come back to that. But alignment means that you're aligning your skeleton in a manner that is the healthiest way for your joints to track. So a great example about this is your knee, right? We always want that tendon underneath your kneecap to be lined up with the second or pointer finger toe. And that means that when we're in a warrior one, which is both legs parallel, that the knee is pointing the same direction as the foot, that we're not allowing that knee to collapse, that would be two different directions, or to fall out, that would be two different directions, or setting up our foot outside of our knee's path. I can't even stand like that, yes? It also means in alignment that we're thoughtful about whether our legs are turned in or out, right? So if I'm in warrior one, that back thigh is externally rotated, not just the foot, which would put torque on my knee, but the whole thigh is externally rotating, and then I'm aligning my hips back to square against that. So lots of work is going on in the external rotators. In our lower back, we want to protect our lower back from collapse and smooshing together and smashing all those little vertebrae back there. And we do that by lifting up and through the abdomen and sort of lengthening through that lower lumbar spine here, yes? I like to tell my Pilates classes that your spine is kind of like a really big hamburger. It could be a bean burger, just saying. But when you have two buns and like a ton of fillings and you take a bite out of one side and then all of the insides squish out to the out, that's what happens with your vertebrae. Your vertebrae are the buns and the discs are your cartilage in between them. And if we're constantly taking a bite that smushes the two buns together, your discs kind of pop out the other side. It's called a herniated disc, and it's bad news bears. So we want to constantly be thinking about elongating through that lower back as opposed to slouching into it and letting your tailbone come out. Some of us have the opposite habit of like really being tucked underneath all the time, but not very many. It's like 10% of people err on the other side. So that's why we normally talk about abdominal engagement. Engagement. Ah, yes. So radiate is your R, and radiate is the idea, just like a sun or a star, that you are reaching through all of your limbs as much as possible. And that could apply to this idea in your lower back as well, that instead of letting it collapse and chunk together, we're trying to radiate through that tailbone and let that tailbone reach down to the center of the earth. Or then instead of just kind of putting my arm out here, I'm so tired, that we're lengthening through the body. You can really feel a stretch all the way through even the segments of your finger bones and your palm, and that you're actively using all those spaces and making spaces between the joints, and also engaging more of your body isometrically through radiation. Many of these things are reciprocal, right? Radiation can be the opposite of centering because you can pull together and reach out at the same time. That makes you really balanced. None of these actions make you stiff. They're meant to work with/against each other to find balance. And putting those things all together is part of what engagement is about, right? I want to balance my reaching with my centering. I want to balance my feeling of rising up with my feeling of grounding and rooting down into the earth. And that doesn't mean I have to get short. I can get tall at the same time as I'm reaching into the earth. I want to be breathing even when I'm holding on to a pose that's really challenging. I still want to feel that breath throughout my whole body. And being engaged means that not only am I thinking about gracefully balancing between these actions, but then I'm staying present in that experience as opposed to just either tuning out, which is a defense mechanism from stress, right? Sometimes it's stressful to do something that's challenging, or focusing so hard on one thing that I'm missing out on part of the experience. Or sometimes we focus really hard on the part of our body that hurts, and then our brain gets like totally in this cycle of paying attention to what's stressful or what's painful. So we want to be engaged with our whole body, yeah? With your feeling your breath and feeling that part of your body that's being challenged. Not getting stuck there, but balancing and flowing between all those movement principles. All right, that said, we're going to have a nice standing warm-up today. I'm going to move my kitty prop out of the way, and we're going to run through a lot of the poses that are going to be on your final today. So I am going to do a lot of naming of vocabulary of poses, and then we will end with hopefully a decent lie down. Okay. Let's begin standing today for our sun salutations. Ooh, it's a sassy beginning. All right. So at the front of your mat, we're going to take a couple of breaths here with your palms in Namaste. Now, I try to only use the word Namaste, meaning this palm position there in front of my heart. It is a position of greeting and bowing to each other. And we white people have appropriated that term, which is a greeting that is used honorably between people, semi-formal, and we often use it in yoga classes to say, I thank you for this class, and it's a reciprocal thanking. I try not to use that word too much anymore because it's really kind of appropriative. And so I like to thank you in English, which is very much more authentic to me. I know that's a mixed thing, but we do still call this position of the hands Namaste. So your hands are in Namaste. Your feet are together. We're going to take a moment to close your eyes, to become present and aware with your breath. I'm going to use Ujjayi breath today, so that's in through the nose and out through the mouth with a throat lock. It makes that sound like the ocean. I'm starting to bring my awareness to the centering of my legs. To my shoulders, drawing down my back, and the lift up the front of my belly. Noticing how my body is as I start my practice today. Just witnessing with acceptance but not judgment. On my next inhale, I'm going to scoop my arms up and out. I'm going to exhale down my center line. And you can choose to open your eyes when you are ready at any point during the next few breath sessions. Inhaling, arms up the side. Exhaling down the center. Arms down the center, bend your knees, awkward chair. Let your hips go way back. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, open. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, pass through forward fold. I'm going to let my arms come along my side body, lengthen through my skull. I'm going to turn to the side for you. So I'm radiating from my tailbone to the top of my head. I'm going to exhale and soften those knees. And I'm going to step back into high lunge and rock back and forth here in high lunge. And remember, high lunge means that both knees are in parallel. So both of your legs, the knees are pointing forward. Now, two directions are forward through the front knee and back through the back heel. The other two directions of a lunge are down, yielding with the hips, and also lifting up through that back thigh. So let's go. Forward with the knee until the knee comes over the ankle, knee and toe straight forward, back with the heel. Exhale those hips down. Inhale, lift that back knee. Big breath. Align your hips square. Radiate through the top of the skull and the back heel. Squeeze those thighs together. We're going to step back to your plank. Hands underneath your shoulders, elbows back, shoulders back. Micro bend in your elbows. And down. Pass through chaturanga where your upper arms are next to your ribs. Inhale, lifting your heart forward with your shoulders back. Exhaling down. Inhaling back up to downward dog. Go ahead and walk your dog. Roll those shoulders down and back. Make sure your elbows are rotated in towards the back of the room. And lift your right leg up to a squared hip, three-legged dog. Yeah, so I'm going to look underneath myself and make sure that my hips are really closing to center line. I'm going to feel where this feels to me. So the outside of my standing leg is getting a big stretch. I'm going to stay aware of that without judgment. Exhale, knee in. Curl forward for the pendulum. Exhale, swing back. Inhale as you lift the leg without opening the hips for this one, please. Inhale, bring it up. Exhale, swing it down. Inhale, bring it up. One more. Step it through. Forward and back in that high lunge. Lifting the back thigh. Yielding the hips down. Squaring the hips with alignment. Shifting back onto that front leg and stepping your feet together. Forward fold. Yield your head and neck and shoulders. Soften your knees if you need to. See if you can release your abdomen. Gently shake your head no. And nod it yes. Yes. Let's say yes. Soften those knees and inhale. Reach your arms back. Feel length through your fingertips, radiating through your head and your tailbone. Let's soften our knees just a little bit. Again, inhale, press the floor away with support, rooting down. Feel that expansion, lift your whole body back up to upright. Exhale, hands back to namaste. Big breath. We're going to do exactly the same pattern on the right side, on your left side. We're going to go a little more quickly through the flow this time. Inhaling up. Exhale, open your chest. Inhale, open heart. Pass through, flat back. Inhale, flat back, arms back, feel the length. Sliding down. And your left foot back. This is the lunge you were just in, rocking forward and back. Dropping the hips, yield. Lengthen, lift up the back thigh. Check your hip and knee alignment. Good, hands down, shoulder width apart, pointer fingers forward, pass through Chaturanga Vinyasa. Inhaling it up. Enjoy that downward dog. Big Ujjayi breath. Feeling without judgment. And right leg stays on the ground as your left leg comes up square. Exhale it down, inhale, forward. Step it forward into your high lunge. Stepping together. Inhale, up through flat back. Exhale, down hips. Rolling up. Good. Take a breath here. Before we go on, go ahead and place your hands on the outside of your hips. We're going to soften those knees a little bit, and we're just going to turn our right thigh out and back, turn our left thigh out and back, keeping your hips square, and just your knee opens, just your knee opens. Good. Down into the ground, press through support, lifting your right leg. Find your bus stop. Is it bus stop A? On the floor for tree, on the ankle, on the calf, above the knee, in the thigh, at the top of the thigh. There are additional placements for your tree. One of them is to point that foot and to put the outside of the foot into the crease of your thigh on your standing leg. And then the way you hold that there is by opening this knee to the back of the room. I think it's really challenging to hold that foot there. So I'm going to go to the one that feels good for me today. I'm going to give myself a little present. Yeah? All right. Find the tree that feels good for you. Let's find our breath. Shoulder blades centering down the back, radiating in two big tree branches today. Find that Ujjayi breath. Remember, your bent leg hip is down and even with your standing leg. So it almost feels like your belly button shifts over to be able to balance over that foot. Let's unhook. Walk it out. And we're going to switch to standing on that right leg. Bust stop A, B, C, above the knee. Heel into the crease. Or if you want to try the extra wild challenge, you can try pulling that foot into the crease. Ooh, this one is tight for me today. How does it feel for you? I'm going to witness my feeling without judgment. I don't think my leg's going to stay here today, but I'm going to try. Maybe I'm going to leave one finger on. Now I'm going to go back to where I can hold it, because both tasks are valuable, yeah? There's the task of staying where you can hold it and working on your endurance in that shape, refining your alignment. And there's also the task of trying something new, being willing to play, not being so worried about being perfect or about sticking to what we know. Instead, being willing to try something new, fail, and eventually learn how to do it. All right, let's release that. Soften it out. And we're gonna flow through another sun salutation, but this time in warrior one. So remember, that means that instead of in high lunge with both knees parallel, warrior one, the back leg steps out and is externally rotated from the thigh, not from the foot. And if you feel anything in your knee while you're doing this, it's probably because your thigh has fallen back to straight. So you want to hold that out. Okay, here we go. At the front of your mat, here we go. Big breath in. All right, step back to high lunge. And this time we're going to cling to center and come up. And exhale back down. Look underneath yourself and step that back leg out to warrior one. It's a 45-degree angle-ish, but more importantly is that your hips stay close to square. Yeah? It's okay to step out wider as your modification. Yeah, so that your hips can come back square, lengthened. And we radiate through that front knee, actively using your under butt muscles here to turn the thigh out. Big breath in. Let's go ahead and just reach up today. I'm going to try and yield my shoulders down and open as I stay here. I'm lifting up through my belly lock. Reaching back through the back heel. Reaching forward to a flat back in warrior one. Exhaling, letting my hands come down, changing my back foot, and chaturanga vinyasa. Remember, anytime we do a chaturanga vinyasa, you can put your knees down instead of having a full plank. And that's important to remember, even if you're quite used to doing a lot of full planks, because sometimes you get injured or you need to recover from an injury. Go ahead and walk your dog while we're talking. Sometimes, like if you get a rotator cuff strain or you're needing to protect part of your body, knowing the modifications to take it down a notch can allow you some practice instead of no practice, yeah? And sometimes it's time for no practice. Let's go ahead and take the left leg up. I'm sorry, this is your right leg. Go ahead and open the hips this time. And look over your left shoulder and see if you can see that foot behind you. Hello, foot. How do you do? Extend that leg. Bring the hips back to square. And step through. Find low lunge, dropping your knee down, pointing that back foot. Hold to your center line to lift your body up. We're going to take our hands down around to the pelvis. Booties want to stick out here, yeah? I want you to tuck your tailbone underneath and lean up on top of that. So it's almost like a low lunge camel mix. Big breath. Good, good, good. Coming back to your low lunge, to your high lunge, stepping it together. And inhaling, flat back. Exhale, soften, come up. Open your chest. Pass through, flat back. Inhale, back up. Left leg back. All right, you can see that alignment to start with is looking good. I'm gonna step out with my back leg to warrior one. I'm gonna really turn that knee out and then re-square my hips to rise up. I'm gonna take a moment. Can I open my hips a little more? Can I bring my back leg hips more square? Can I straighten that back leg without flipping my tailbone? Can I yield a little more in the front hip without opening wide? Can I lift my heart up without collapsing in the lower back? Can I support? Can I root down into both legs so I feel that strength pressing into the floor? Feeling free and radiating through the heart. Centering with that front thigh. Don't let it just flop open. Keep it pointed forward. Flat back forward. And hands to the floor. Change your back leg. Step back, Chaturanga Vinyasa. And now your left leg's gonna rise up. Hips are gonna open. You're gonna look over your right shoulder. Bend that left leg over your right shoulder. Straighten that leg. Re-square the hips. And your left leg sweeps through to high lunge and down to low lunge. So square hips. We're gonna lift up the body. And we're gonna take our arms back around and tuck that tailbone underneath. So big opener in the right hip socket. Yeah, I could go way further forward if I let my lower back out. Right? I could go here. That's not what we're doing here. What we're concentrating on is taking that pelvis square forward so that we're taking the pelvis forward and the leg remains back and this opens this hip. Yeah? Radiating up through your heart. Good job. Stepping it together. Drop the hips, rising up. Go ahead and step onto your right leg. If you want to hold on to something like a wall or a ceiling, if you happen to be in a very short basement like I am, go ahead and hold on to something if you like. Squared hips, squares leg together. We're going to just grab your left heel and bring it to the left hip socket. Yeah, so no twisting. It's easier for me to pull my ankle to the outside of my thigh Yeah, and sometimes that's where we want to grab on because it's a little bit closer, but then I want you to bring it back into alignment and re-square your knees and thighs together so that we're not torquing the knee. Alignment. Big breath in. Exhale, put your hand on the horizon. And I want you to look way out in space to a focal point. It's called a drishti. As you press your foot into your hand to come into King Dancer pose, keeping your focus on that drishti. Bring it back center. Find your balance on the other side. Starting with a quadricep stretch, you can hold on to something. See, it's easier to grab your foot out here, but we want to pull it back, heel to its own hip socket, and then center to realign the hips and knees. If one knee is higher than the other, you know that your hips are not straight either. All right, find your focal point. Find your breath. And you press your foot into your hand to begin to lean out in your King Dancer pose. Keep centering. Remember, support into the ground. Coming up when you're ready. We're going to rotate our mat sideways for the next section. So if you find it easier to see with your mat perpendicular, if you've been this way, it might be easier perpendicular. So starting with a nice wide stance, we're going to take our breath up. We're going to exhale down. With our drishti straight forward, we're going to turn both knees out comfortably. Doesn't need to be extreme. Your knees are not pointing at the side of the room by any means. Big breath in. And I'm going to press down into the horse rider's pose. Most of us tip our tailbones back here and lean forward in this pose. I want you to use your abdominal strength to lift that torso as vertical as possible. And then you can use your shoulder blades to pull your arms back into your thighs. Big breath in, press. Exhale. Press into the floor, radiate. Press into the floor support. All right, big stars. We're gonna bring one foot a little bit closer. Take your hands to your hips. Standing on your left leg, I want you to just teeter-totter those hips. For the star, your hips are gonna be not flat with the floor, but tilted. And we'll lift the leg up. My chest is actually going a little forward, just like my toes. And I'm gonna soften, support, push, radiate, and that will help you balance. This leg is definitely in front of my body. When we switch to the other side, I'm gonna show you how not flat I am, even though it looks flat in the video. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna tip my hips over the sole of the standing foot, and I'm gonna lift my arms and legs out and forward. I'm gonna run into my wall here, yeah, to find my star. Yeah, it's pretty far forward, right? That's okay. All right, big breath. Here comes our flow. We're gonna turn your right leg back to the front, left leg all the way left and stretch. Scooch it out to your warrior two. Just like the horseman's pose, we want to drop the tailbone down to the center of the earth. Shoulders, hips, knees, arms, all on one fat plane. My heel lines up with my arch. My knee and toe point together. Drishti's out on the horizon. Let's find our breath. We go. Full feet into the mat, always support. All right, let's breathe. We're gonna bring our hands up. Exhale. Shoot your bow and arrow. If you're having sensation in your quad, it's a sensation. Let's witness it. Without judgment, doesn't need an adjective. Take your elbow down to that sensation and lift long across your side angle pose. One line through the body. All right, friends, let's come back to warrior two. Bring your heel a little bit closer. Take your hands to your hips. Sassy hips to the right leg. Find your straight body. Arms in a T. Here's your triangle. Your triangle can rest on your shin or the floor, but your spine must remain straight. Find your breath. Remember, you're not hyperextending your knees here. Support. Keep those legs alive. Bottom hip is pushing underneath the right hip. Your drishti in the triangle has three options. You can either look down at the floor. Make sure you're not dropping your head. You want to lengthen. Out, straight, or up. Let's do up today. I don't think we've done it this semester. Do you see your shoulder bulging towards your face? Can you roll those shoulders back so they're re-engaged with your spine? Is your arm passing your torso because it thinks it can get you farther? Bring it back to your rib cage. Good, good. Big breath in. Exhale, soften both knees. Turn your body to face that leg, your left leg, yeah? And we're gonna straighten that left leg in the pyramid pose. Big stretch. All right, soften both knees. Your hips are pretty much in between your feet right now. I'd like you to walk your hands and your hips forward over that front leg. We're gonna straighten the back leg. We're gonna take it down to the floor. I don't know about you, but I noticed my floor was crossed. So let's find that alignment. We're gonna lift up by pushing into the ground and come up to balancing stick pose, which is also step one for your warrior three. So your shoulders are down, your abs are in, there's no booties out here. Your hips are square. Let's go ahead and take our hands down to our hips to make sure they're square. And we're gonna teeter-totter forward with one straight body, radiating top of the head through the hips. And you can swing your arms forward. Many bust-ups on the way to a flat warrior three. Soften that knee, come back up center. Good job. Take your hands to your head. Soften. Take your hands to your pompadour. Center of the head, yeah? The crown of your head is in the middle of the top of your head. Most of us feel the top of our head as being right behind our hairline. So I'd like you to please find the real top of your head. Put your hands on the top of it there, just with your fingertips. Come to flat back and push by radiating. Push into your hands. Feel a long neck. Nod your head, feel your scalp move. Soften. Release those hands, come back up. Right leg's gonna turn to the side of the room. We're gonna come to the other warrior two now. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. We're doing great on time, so that's fabulous. All right. Checkpoints for your warrior two. Your knee is over your ankle is your goal. In the beginning, it might be less than over your ankle. It should never be past your ankle, yeah? If it's passing your ankle, then it's time to widen your stance. Or check that you're really in a pelvic open position, yeah? And that's true of all of our lunges. Our knee should be over the ankle and not past the toes. Knee and toes are pointing the same direction back here. Hips are opening. Tailbone's dropping down. Sometimes it helps to think of the inner hip coming underneath this other one, yeah? Because that tends to be where we go back. The alignment of the heel here goes across to the arch of the back foot. This is perpendicular. It's a 90-degree angle. This leg is one way and the other leg is the other way. Yeah? Arms are out to the side. In your full expression of this pose, your palms will be over your feet. In the full expression of the pose, which you will notice I am not doing, you're all the way down to 90. Yeah, that's a lot. Find your edge. Don't be trying to be in a place where something else is going out of alignment, yeah? Find your breath. Can you yield in the shoulders? Shoulder blades are back instead of holding on tight. Can you breathe? Can you radiate? Inhale with the breath up. Let's shoot our bow and arrow, keeping our drishti out on the horizon. Big breath in, elbow to knee. We're switching to this side angle pose. Now most of us, when we get here, the hips travel up a little bit and that lower hip goes out behind ourselves. So as we get back down, we're gonna reposition the hip underneath, rotating the ribs and pelvis back flat, reopening this knee so knee and toe are still together. One long line from your fingertips through your shoulder and your hips and knees. Find your breath. Come back up. Good. Straighten that front leg. It should feel like a huge reward to get out of that lunge. Hooray, you did it. Scooch a little bit together. Tip the hilts back to your triangle. Revolving through the ribs, revolving through the hips. Drishti up this time. Shoulders back, long neck. No arms behind you. How's your breath? Take it down to the forward leg. Turn your back leg parallel. You can bend it for some relief. Pyramid pose, stretching the forward leg. Back center. Go ahead and take your knees down to the floor. And sit back in a wide angle pose. Yeah. Just go ahead and rock your pelvis for me, side to side. See if you can make a little space between your hip bones and your thigh. Take those thighs all the way together. Yeah? Feet are pointed behind you, not crossed. Pointed, not crossed. Align those toes and ankles as well as you are your thighs, please. Yeah? We don't want to practice a position that leads to rolling your ankle. Okay, so I'm reaching through my thighs. If you're very tight in the front of your ankle, they might not touch. It might look like this at first, and it might be a huge stretch here for a while. Eventually they'll lengthen out, yeah? So be gracious. If it's like awful back there, you can roll a towel to give yourself a little support so it's not such a deep stretch. Okay, but we're gonna take our pelvis upright and back, upright and back. I'm gonna take my hands to my sacrum and I'm gonna lift my hips all the way up over those legs. Now for most of us, if your booty's not out, booty out, won't feel anything right here. If you're really taking your tailbone back down vertical towards the floor and lifting your pelvic bones all the way up, then you'll feel a stretch already right here. So look for that, yeah? My legs want to spread apart here. So I have to center to keep them parallel. I'm going to take my hands to my sacrum, which is that bony part between the cheeks of your butt, and I'm going to keep that tucked in. I'm going to bring my elbows back, my shoulder blades down and back. I'm going to bring my chin to my chest and lift my heart. Do not let your butt go back for this camel pose. Long neck, chin to your chest. Your shoulders can rise here to support your neck. When you return home, bring your chin to your chest first, then hips back. Slide it out into your child's pose as a contrast. Roll it up. Changing the feet to tuck the feet. Yeah. Press back into a squat. Have a little stretch through your arches and your feet and your calves. Notice how your legs want to fall apart. Recenter. Drop your head, yield your head, find your breath. All right, we're going to put our knees back down. This is a lot, this position, I know. Yeah, so respect your knees. If your knees are like absolutely not arthritis, don't do it. Yeah. You can sit on a pillow instead. Lifting up. We're going to keep that same camel pose knee, but this time I'm going to let you come back and grab an ankle. But then you're going to have to really work to get that tailbone to sweep up underneath you so we're not just bucking our booties out. Yeah? Okay? Tuck it underneath. Press up. Press up. Try and get both hips forward over those knees as opposed to back here and arched. Yeah? Good. Switch sides. Tailbone tucks underneath. Thighs center. Press it up. Shoulders back. Come on back home. Squeeze those thighs together. Can you do both? Press those hips forward. Come back down. Take your elbows to the floor. Cat-cow with your elbows on the floor. Release that back. Take one hand and the other around your elbows here. So you're testing the distance so that your elbows will be on the floor the same distance as your shoulders, which happens to be the distance from your elbow to your hand, yeah? So there you are, elbows shoulder distance apart, and you're gonna interlace your fingers up here in front. So this pose, when we then straighten the legs from here, first let's do a shoulder push-up. So basically I'm like hugging, I'm hollowing out my chest and widening my shoulders, but I also want to anchor them down. Drop your chest forward. Push your elbows into the floor so your spine rises. Anchor your shoulders down. I know that's a complicated thing. Lifting up in your belly lock. Press not only in your elbows but also into your pinkies. And your belly lock lifts your hip. You are now in the dolphin pose. The dolphin pose. Your head starts out between your elbows. Can you tuck your chin in and shift your chin over your hands? Find your breath. And press your elbows forward. Head between your arms. Again. And back. Good. Take it down. Rest in your child's pose. Walk your fingers way forward. Scoot yourself back by pushing with your hands. And we're going to find not the tiara place on your head that we discussed earlier, but the crown of your head. And we're going to place the crown of your head on the floor. So if I just drop my head down, I'm not there yet. For me, I have to lift my body up a little bit. I want you to just lift your buns up in the air and roll the floor from the tiara to the crown. So from Ravenclaw diadem to the crown. Yeah. There's no weight, really. Just a little bit of weight. Massaging my scalp. All right. Now, when we put weight into our heads, if our chins are jutted out and our necks are collapsed, that's going to put the weight into the forehead and just behind the forehead and the hairline. So we don't want to be putting weight in a collapsed neck. We want to be putting weight in a neck that's radiating length, shoulders are anchored down, and you feel like maybe a half an extra chin is happening. So we have that tall, long neck feeling. So can you find your tall, long neck feeling? And I'm going to put my thumbs on my shoulders and my fingertips around my ears. And with that feeling, I'm going to lift my butt up in the air, and I'm going to see if I can feel a tall, long neck feeling into the floor. It's quite challenging. Yeah. And then place your elbows around your head, squeeze them in. And I'm going to hold my back of my skull. You can also hold your hands together all the way. Some people prefer that. It's just a technique difference. I have a big head. I think that's why I prefer wide hands. But sometimes it's really helpful to use the hand hold because it reminds you that you need to be centering in through your arms the whole time. So both are really great. All right, crown of the head on the floor, not your tiara. Crown, not your tiara. Tuck those toes and see if you can come up into your dolphin. Now I have almost no weight in my head, and when I press my elbows and pinkies into the floor, there's no weight in my head at all, and there's room. So can you tap the crown of your head on the floor next to your forearms, between your forearms? Good. Come on down, friends. We're going to come down to our buns for a moment. Let the blood rush back out of your head. And we're going to come down to our elbows and just rock those thighs. Rocking thighs. You got some rocking thighs right now. Yes. Okay. Let's circle. And circle the other one. Crunchy today I am. We're going to go into our happy baby pose. We're going to get back up again. So hold your excitement about Shavasana. It's coming, but not quite yet. Happy baby pose. So my knees are outside of my rib cage and my ankles are over my knees, and I'm going to grasp my heels or the soles of my feet. And you know, you can just rock here. I think it feels delicious, but you want to feel a stretch in your inner thigh. Yeah, the weight of your arm is bringing your knees closer to the ground, and that's what's opening your inner thighs out. And the nice thing about happy baby pose is that it's a really passive way to stretch those inner thighs, and it's pretty difficult to turn back to parallel position with your legs because your arm's in the way. So it helps you be turned out. Now, if you're feeling open, you can start to lengthen those legs. But again, you don't want to let the leg go and turn over and turn in. The knee's still pointing towards the floor. If you can grab onto your thighs, if you're going to switch, notice how your legs want to swing out and down away from you. I'd rather you keep them up towards like a 45-degree angle. I know that looks not like what I'm doing in the video because the video is, the camera warps directions here. So let me put my hips straight to the camera, come to my happy baby pose, and go back to my stretch. And so now you can see that my legs are nowhere near straight to the side, right? They're way up here so that I can keep my knees facing the floor. And that changes the focus to remain on my inner thighs as opposed to my, it keeps it in the adductors. Now, obviously I'm very flexible, so it might look like this on you, and that is great. Yeah, as long as you're feeling it in here. Okay, bring those knees in for a break and give them a hug. And now please nod your head, yes. Yeah, I want you to slightly drop that chin. Feel how long your neck could be. Yeah, so the back of the neck, really stretch it out. And I want you to please take your hands up around your head, and obviously your head's in the way, so you can't get your hands probably to hold. Maybe just above your head, and open it. And now bring your elbows up and in around your head. And I want you to actively press the back of your skull and your neck towards the mat, because that feeling of shoulders down and lengthening will help you. Okay, we're gonna hold our knees close, and we're gonna go back to the happy baby shape and stretch your legs out. Feel what it feels like to have your body in this flat against the floor position. Your legs are open, your elbows are squeezing in. All right, friends, bring those legs back up. We're gonna do the dolphin wide angle inversion. If you have a sturdy piece of furniture that's a couch can hold you up to your shoulders for this one, so that's okay. A wall is best. I'm gonna use this wall. Yeah. If you're on a super hardwood floor, you can double or triple fold your mat so that your skull has something to press on. That's not quite as hard as your floor. But for the sake of time today, I'm just gonna go into it. Okay, so I'm making my arm shape first here. I'm gonna try and move my body away so you can see. Nope, you can't see. I'm gonna make my arm shape first. I'm gonna hold hands, a little bit of space. Remember, my elbows are only as wide apart as my hands can reach around them. I'm gonna put the crown of my head into that spot. The crown of my head, not my forehead. I'm gonna lengthen through the chin. And the way that I'm gonna get up into this position is I'm gonna go to the dolphin, and I'm gonna walk my feet out to the sides. And as you walk, there will be a moment where your hips are rising, rising, rising. And when your hips, the weight of your hips gets near to over your shoulders, your hips will have this unfurling feeling. And that's how you get into this pose, yeah? Okay, you can watch first, or you can give it a shot if you've done it before. Setting up my hands, my knuckles are touching the wall just barely. The crown of my head is on the floor. And I'm gonna come up into my dolphin first. And I'm gonna check that the back of my neck is long. My shoulders are not touching the wall at this point. Yeah, I'm gonna walk my feet in and wide. And I'm gonna come back down because I can feel that my neck is not all the way lengthened, and I wanna protect that neck. Okay, so I'm gonna reset. And when my hips are over my shoulders, then my hips roll up. And then I open my thighs to balance. So I'm using those external rotators that we focused on earlier to get my balance here. I don't know where my wall was, but it was not touching me this time. It's kind of weird. Okay, so please give that 3 tries. Bus stop A, It's just working on feeling the crown of your head and a long neck. Can you get your shoulders down? Can you get to a dolphin pose here? Bus-stop B is walking your legs out wide, but your toes stay on the floor. Do not hop. Remember, that's my rule. I don't want you to hop because you're missing that strengthening control that's going to help you support and unfurl upwards. I don't think it's worth it to miss that strengthening part. I think you will improve more quickly if you hang out with that. Side view. Now, if you're feeling scared, you can reassure yourself that your butt has something to meet over there. Coming back to my mat, friends. Remember, 3 tries. It's okay to fall out of it. Just bend at your waist and put your feet back where they started. Better follow my own instructions. Wide walk today. How'd you do? Was it okay? Was it silly? Did you get one leg up? Tell me how you did, please. And with that, let's relax. First thing we're gonna do is relax our necks. Yeah. So as you lay your head down on the floor, we're gonna start with comfy knees and first just slow motion, head right and left. And I want your shoulder blades to be tucked in and your palms are up. Arms are a little bit wide so you can really feel space between the earlobe and each shoulder as you slowly move your head left to right. You can knock those knees together so your back can fully release. Finding your breath. Coming back center, we're going to nod our head a yes. And let your eyes close, and if you're ready to slide your legs down for Shavasana, you can. But I want you to settle into your Shavasana today by nodding your head, and we're going to make that nod of your head on the floor get smaller and smaller over the next 10 breaths. Smaller and smaller over the next 10 breaths. Smaller and smaller over the next 10 breaths. And as that nodding gets smaller, your jaw is going to start to release, letting the jaw fall back towards the mat. Letting your breath expand through the neck and the throat. Letting the ribs in the front of your chest spread apart as you inhale. Almost like you're opening shutters and beams of light are shining out from your heart. I'd like you to imagine your heart as a glowing green star. And as we breathe into it, that glowing orb, it expands a little bit and settles. As you inhale, feel your skeleton shuffle up and open like a bird puffing up the feathers on its chest as it ruffles to stay warm in the winter. And then softens those downy feathers lightly against each other with air still in them. Let your ribs be like feathers, making a bit more room for the glow of your heart. And let yourself expand this visualization of loosening up the shingles of your body. Expanding that idea through your neck and your skull. Finding softness between your joints and letting that green love shine through. Expanding down through your belly and your waist. Your next breath into your heart lets that light shine out down through your pelvis. Through your hips and your thighs. Through your shins and your ankles and your feet. Through the soles of your feet. And let your breath and your heartbeat expand into your whole body as shining with that love. And let yourself love yourself. Let your heart grow 3 sizes too big. Let your breath grow 3 sizes too big. And let that love expand past your skin and out into that room beyond you. And let your self-compassion be free. It is endless. Let it go out into the world and thank your fellow classmates for making it possible for us to practice. And just imagine if your heart could send that beating love out, just like a big bell in a whole town. Bong. And feel other people's compassion coming back to you. love is reaching out to each of you. And let your skin absorb that compassion and that love as you come back in your awareness to your body. As you come back to your everyday, knowing that you're supported from afar. Taking your experience this semester that you made it through and letting it inform you that you can achieve what you set your mind to. As you come back to your body, take your hands around your torso and give yourself a little squeeze. And a great big breath. Let your eyes open and come on back. Well done, adventurers. I hope to see you next week. Thank you for class. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in yourself.